What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Some Daily Fantasy. Glad to be joined, as always, by Casey's Time and taking a look at the Watkins Glen International 31st Annual Cheez-It 355 at the Glen. Road courses, always fun, always entertaining, only, though, twice a year. I think Watkins Glen is one of my favorite, technical road courses. To me, a little bit more technical than Sears Point, even though it has less turns, less elevation change. But I love the fact that this track has three main passing opportunities. And to me, it really comes down to consistency like all road courses. You take a look at teams that have to get cars well balanced. And to me, I think that's going to mean some big teams. They're going to be obviously the teams to chase this week. Not going to have a situation last week where you take a look at Chris Buescher winning a rainout. You're going to have a good car, and you're going to have to be a good driver to take the checkered flag this weekend.
Yeah, and I think that it's worth noting, too, that since NASCAR started running these Cup cars, you and I talked about this a little bit before, since they started running these Cup cars on the road courses, Jeff Gordon has 9 wins, Tony Stewart has 8 wins, and the rest of the field has 7. So that's going to play into those larger teams like you were just talking about. But Jeff Gordon's starting back in the 21st position, so I don't see him taking the checkers. Stewart's rolling off in the 3rd position, so we'll see how that plays out. The other point I would make is that over the course of the week, the drivers have been talking a lot about the repave here. The track was repaved with a different blend of asphalt than what they're used to. So Goodyear brought a tire here that's a little bit harder than what the guys are used to. So there's some adjustments being made in the setup based on the tires that they're having to run. So we saw during practice that qualifying laps actually got faster as they progressed instead of having to fall off like we're used to. So that should lead to some pretty interesting pit strategies as we go forward.
And it seems to be about a 3-lap window where the tires are ultra slick. And that reason alone is going to give me a little bit of help in making my picks this week. When I look at top names, I want guys that are consistent, but I also like guys that just ran the nationwide race because they have some experience in how this tire compound reacts. So I'm going to look at drivers like Kyle Busch, like Joey Logano, and like Brad Keselowski. Even though they all start in the top 12, I think they're going to be 3 big names that are going to run consistent for you up front.
Well, and I would preface mine by saying that I think it's going to be harder than ever to pass here. You talked a little bit about the passing opportunities, but because of those tires, I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult than what they're used to. And we saw that a little bit in the practice session this week. So my first driver to watch this week is going to be pole sitter Carl Edwards. This is one of those races where starting on the pole is going to be a big advantage to him. He can get out front and let everybody else just kind of fall into a single formation and chase him around the track for the most part. The second driver is a guy you touched on just a second ago, Joey Logano. He's had a great week of practice. He's very comfortable here, and he's going to roll off 7th. So that should be a pretty safe top 10 finish for me. And then last driver, number 3 this week, is going to be Martin Truex Jr. from the 14th spot. Based on his speed all week, and according to Carl Edwards and the other Gibbs drivers, this car's super fast again this week. If not for an unattentive Ricky Stenhouse Jr. on the track during qualifying today, Truex probably would have qualified in the top 5. So it was unfortunate. He was pretty angry when he got out of the car, but I look for him to make some moves early and make those positions up before the first pit stop.
Some of the mid-level guys, and I know this is guy hit or miss all year, but he just ran very well in the Nationwide Series race. He also had some issues in qualifying. I know you're concerned about the passing, but to me, teams will augment that by pitting early, getting off sequence, and running clear laps in traffic. I look at Paul Menard way back in 33rd as a great option. I also like the entire row 12. Casey Kane, again, he's been inconsistent all year, but we're talking about a road course. I think he's going to know how to get the job done. And also Greg Biffle. The Fords have rebounded well. He's been pretty quick, and I think if you look at the entire Ford group, he's your best bet for a most consistent finish out of Ford when you look at the Roush camps and things along those lines. Obviously, Penske's kind of on their own planet, but I think Greg Biffle's going to have a good run this weekend as well.
Well, you and I have different strategies this week, and I think there's a lot of value in this section. So the guy I'm going to start with is the number 42 of Kyle Larson. He showed a lot of speed this week in practice and in qualifying. He's going to start on the front row outside of Carl Edwards. And this kid has a super fast car again this week, ultra talented. I look for him to stay in the top 5 probably by the end of the day. Driver number 2 will be the 14 of Tony Stewart. Touched on him in the opening. He's got 8 victories on the road courses. He's going to roll off 3rd at this race. He took the checkers at Sonoma on June 26th, I think it was. So I look for Tony to have another good week at the Glen this weekend. And driver number 3 here is going to be Jamie McMurray. I think it's going to be real low ownership for him. He's going to roll off in the 10th. He's in the 10th spot. He's looked good all week. And for the price, he's a perfect fit in my DFS lineup. But I want to throw in one honorable mention this week, and that's Michael McDowell. I like this kid. He's also looked solid this week. He's got a lot of power in that car. He's got a lot of confidence on these road courses. He's got a lot of experience on these road courses. And at only $5,500 on DraftKings, he's certainly worth a look.
Some drivers I don't like. One thing that does concern me about McDowell, even though he's a great road course driver, is the 11th starting spot. That car just doesn't have the crew, in my opinion, to stay up there. But some drivers that I don't like Cole Witt rolling off 22nd. I think he's got a bunch of drivers going to get past him. And I also don't like last week's winner, Chris Buescher. I think Chris Buescher is going to struggle here on a road course. He is a good driver. He's been solid in terms of where he's running. He absolutely walked into a win, but I don't think he's going to have the consistency to stay there. To me, I know he has the drive. He's got to get in the top 30, but I don't think this is going to be a weekend where they really look to hammer it down. And I also don't like Trevor Bayne. Trevor Bayne has been missed all year. He's a good road course driver, and he did get experience, I believe, in the Nationwide car today. But I just don't think that he has the ability to put together a full race here without making a mistake. And if you watch the Nationwide race, he just did that. And this is one of those races where you make that one mistake and you're never going to recover. You're probably going to be down 10 positions at the end of the day after you've made it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's going to be a lot of positions changing hands this week because of mistakes. It's easy to make mistakes on this track. We've seen it all week. It's not even in qualifying. People abandoning their qualifying runs because of one mistake. So it's a little bit different this week. The guys I'm going to avoid this week, though, are the guys that are a little more expensive that you touched on a little bit before, like Casey Kane in the 23rd spot, Greg Biffle in the 24th spot. Anybody in that 22nd, 23rd, back all the way to 40, really. I just don't think it's going to be a track where you can make up a lot of ground. You know, even though a lot of drivers are going to finish on the lead lap, this isn't one of those tracks where half the field or better is going to go a lap down or 2 or 5 or 10 laps down. But for the money, I just don't like those guys. I think there are better options up front, and I think the money this week, you're going to cash if you have those guys that finish up front. I think the only way to do that is to start with the guys up front.